Good morning, this is your stat sensei, Mr. Spensei, and this is observations or experiment, and this is assignment number 14. And just remember, to be an experiment, treatments have to be imposed. There's usually a comparison group, and they are usually randomly assigned. Observational study is people doing what they already are doing. So one of the key phrases that we'll generally look for is random assignment. So 30 bipolar patients were randomly assigned. Ooh, that's good. To two groups. Oh, we have two groups. That means we have a comparison. I'll tell you right now, without going any farther, if we have comparison and random assignment, this is definitely an experiment. Piece of cake on that. All right. Next one. The leg muscles of men aged 60 to 75 were measured for strength. Okay. So far, this is an observational study. We just measured some men, their strength. After they were placed in a 16-week high-intensity resistance program twice a week, their leg muscles were 50 to 80% stronger. So now we're saying they were measured twice. They were measured before and they were measured after. Because it's a before and after situation, it is an experiment. So before and after is an experiment. It's a special type of experiment called a matched paired. All right. This is, if you have a before and after, that's where it's going to be a little bit tricky. All right. So before and after, it's a matched paired, even though it didn't say random assignment, which is what I was looking for, but they were measured twice. They were measured initially and then they were measured later. All right. Number 3, a randomly selected group of 200 men and women with moderately high blood pressure that averaged 164/89 did worse on tests of memory and reaction time than another randomly selected group. So in this case, this sounds like an experiment because we have two groups, but it says they were randomly selected. All right, they were randomly selected. They were not assigned treatments. All right, so they were not assigned high blood pressure. So measuring memory afterwards, can show a relationship, but it cannot show causation because they were not assigned high blood pressure. If they were assigned high blood pressure, which you couldn't do, then it would be. Randomly selected also is generally going to be an observational study. Not always, got to be careful with that, but because they were not assigned that treatment, it's an observational. And I do want to say up here, even they were assigned high intensity workouts. All right. It says they were placed up here. That's the same as saying they were assigned. All right. So be careful with that. Number 2 is super tricky. Number 3 is a little more straightforward, but not easy. I think number 4 is going to be a lot easier. A randomly selected group of 100. Oh, we see selected, so we're thinking it could be observational. With vitamin B12 deficiency were tracked for several years, along with another randomly selected group of elderly women who were not vitamin B deficient. Those with a vitamin B deficiency were twice as likely to suffer from severe depression as those who did not. Were they assigned the vitamin B deficiency? No assignment. If they weren't assigned, yes, we have comparison. Comparison is good. That's something that's required to be an experiment. But there was no assignment, so this is also number 4 is also an observational. Number 5, a random sample of more than 360,000 Swedish men's medical records show that those who were overweight or had high blood pressure had a higher rate of kidney cancer. Historical records are observational studies. They were not assigned to be overweight. They were not assigned to be high blood pressure. Since there was no assignment, this is also an observational study. Number 6, in a study of the effect of dietary patterns on blood pressure, 459 subjects were randomly assigned. Ooh, that right there tells me it might be an experiment. To two groups. Oh, we have a comparison. This has got to be an experiment. The group was fed the DASH diet, had a 6.7 drop in blood pressure as compared to the control group. Okay, So we have a comparison group, we have assignment. This is an experiment and can show causation. All right. There is a concern that postmenopausal women who take estrogen and drink alcohol will have estrogen levels that are too high. 12 volunteers were ran. And by the way, when I see volunteers, I'm go, not sure. This could be observation. But even in experiments, we have to use volunteers. So I got to keep reading. Were randomly assigned. Oh, there's that phrase. That's the phrase that says this is probably going to be experiment to two groups. Yes, we have two groups. I'm pretty confident we're dealing with an experiment. One group had an alcoholic beverage and the other group did not. After 1 hour, each woman's estrogen level was measured. Another group of 12 volunteers who do not take estrogen were also randomly assigned into two groups. Sounds like we have several groups here that are being compared, but the main thing is we have multiple groups, we have random assignment. This is an experiment. All right, number 8, is diet or exercise effective in combating insomnia? 40 volunteers. Again, I see volunteers and I get a little bit nervous about whether this is an observation or a study or experiment, but I need to keep reading because we use volunteers in observational studies and in experiments. So 40 volunteers suffering from insomnia agreed to participate in a month-long test. Half were randomly assigned. Oh, randomly assigned. I'm thinking this is an experiment to a special diet with no desserts. Oh, so sad. And the remaining half continue eating desserts as usual. In addition, half of the no dessert group was randomly placed in an exercise program and the other half did not participate. All right. So basically, we have multiple groups, we have random assignment. This is basically an experiment. All right. So continuing on, number 9. Researchers want to compare the efficacy of two different types of insect traps. They randomly selected 10 locations in a large garden and placed one of each kind of trap in each location. After a week, they counted the number of bugs. All right, they randomly selected 12 and placed. I don't like that word placed. It should say randomly assigned and randomly placed. It's missing the word random, but randomly placed or randomly assigned one of each kind of trap to the location. So if it says, we are going to assume that they did it randomly. If they randomly placed it, then this is an experiment because they assigned the type of trap to the location. All right. Researchers have linked an increase in the incidence of breast cancer in Italy to the release of dioxin in the 1976 industrial accident. 980 women who lived near the site of industrial explosion and were under the age of 40 at the time of the incident. 15 of the women had developed breast cancer at an unusually young age. Medical records indicated. Okay, so first off, they were not assigned to the exposure and we use medical records. All right, so this is using historical records. There was no treatment assigned. And as a result, this is an observational study. Number 11, the lifespans of 100 randomly selected mothers was shortened by an average of 34 weeks per son. The same study indicated an average having a daughter helped to lengthen a mother's life expectancy. The data came from church records. First off, this is coming from records. That's one thing. All right. Coming from records typically is an observational study. Also, yes, you may have chosen to have kids, but you didn't get to choose whether you're having a son or a daughter. So you were not randomly assigned daughter, and because there's no random assignment and we used records, this is going to be an observational study. Moving on to number 12. In 2001, a report in the Journal of American Cancer Institute indicated that women who work nights have a 60% greater risk of developing breast cancer. Researchers base these findings on their work histories. Ooh, there's another historical record. Also, they weren't assigned to work nights. They chose to work nights. All right. They were not randomly assigned to working nights. So, with that said, because there's no random assignment, once again, observational study. Number 13. The May 4th, 2000 issue of Science News reported that, contrary to popular belief, depressed individuals cries no more often than non-depressed individuals. Researchers studied 23 men and 48 women with major depression. They showed the subjects a sad film about a boy whose father has died, noting that whether or not the subject cried, women cried more often than men, but there was no significant difference between the depressed and non-depressed groups. All right, we have two groups. All right, we have two groups, and which is good. We have a treatment, but we don't have. Um, so we have a treatment, but there was, in this case, um, it is an experiment because we have the two groups, and they were assigned to watch a movie, and we compared the two groups. So they were assigned to watch a movie that was a treatment, and then we observed the results. All right. So I shouldn't have used the word observe, but we have two groups and they were assigned this treatment. All right. Oh, and I should say on number 13, the two groups are men and women. Number 14, scientists at a major pharmaceutical firm investigated the effectiveness of a herbal compound to treat a common cold. They exposed each subject, exposed. That's like imposing a treatment. So they assigned. If you assign or impose, it's a pretty good sign it's going to be an experiment. Each to a cold virus. Then through random assignment, they gave the subject either the herbal compound or a sugar solution. This tells me once again we have random assignment. All right. We have two groups, those that had the herbal compound and those that had the sugar solution. Because we have two groups and we have random assignment, this is clearly an experiment. Number 15, scientists examined the glycogen in rats' brains at the rats' normal bedtimes and after they had been kept awake for an extra 6, 12, or 24 hours. All right. So the scientists found the glycogen was 38% lower among those that had been sleep deprived for 12 hours or more than the level recovered during subsequent sleep. Okay, so here's what we have. They had been kept awake. So in this case, we assigned them to stay awake. We have three groups, 6, 12, and 24 hours. So we assigned them to one of these groups. You're either in a 6-hour deprivation, 12-hour deprivation, or 24-hour deprivation. So we put them into three groups, multiple groups. We assigned them to that. So we have comparison and multiple groups. This is an experiment. All right, number 16. Believing that it'll make the dogs run faster, many people who race greyhounds give the dogs large doses of vitamin C. Investigators at the University of Florida tried 3 different diets in random order on each of 5 greyhounds. All right. So tried. That means they assigned. All right. The researchers were surprised to find that when the dogs ate high amounts of vitamin C, they ran more slowly. Anyway, they assign treatments. They have multiple groups. This is an experiment. So if you have assignment with multiple groups, it's an experiment. If you're watching people do what they've already done, or if it is historical records of some sort, it's going to be an observational study. Experiment, we have assigned treatments, multiple groups, observational study. You may have multiple groups, you may not, but you will not have treatments that were imposed or assigned. It'll be people doing what they already do, or it'll be working with historical records or medical records or something like that. I hope this helps. I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you.